A former Boeing engineer told me something that will rewrite aviation history. The real problem with the 737 MAX wasn't MCAS. It's a fundamental flaw we've been hiding in 60 years of aircraft design. And the company chose to let 346 people die rather than admit this truth. I'm about to expose the most devastating cover-up in aviation history. This isn't about software failures or pilot error. This is about a corporate conspiracy so calculated that Boeing sacrificed 346 lives to protect a 60-year-old lie. The MCAS crisis wasn't a malfunction, it was a cover-up. And once you understand what Boeing has been hiding, you'll realize those deaths weren't an accident. They were murder. Boeing's deadly secret begins in 1967. The original 737 was designed for small engines mounted close to the ground. But as engines grew larger and more efficient, Boeing faced a choice: redesign the aircraft properly or apply dangerous shortcuts. They chose shortcuts. Instead of extending landing gear to accommodate larger engines, Boeing mounted them further forward and higher up. This created pitch-up moment, the tendency for the aircraft to nose up uncontrollably. For 60 years, Boeing has been designing software patches and mechanical band-aids to hide this fundamental flaw. MCAS was just the latest and deadliest cover-up attempt. When Airbus launched the A320neo in 2010, Boeing panicked. They had two choices: spend $20 billion on a new aircraft design, or slap massive engines on the aging 737 and pretend nothing changed. They chose murder. The CFM LEAP 1B engines were so large they couldn't fit under the 737. Boeing's solution created dangerous handling characteristics they knew could kill passengers. Internal emails from 2012 show engineers calling their own design clowns supervised by monkeys. One engineer wrote, "I still haven't been forgiven by God for the covering up I did last year." These weren't concerns. They were confessions of manslaughter. MCAS wasn't safety equipment. It was a lie detector designed to hide the 737 MAX deadly instability. The system would automatically push the nose down when sensors detected pitch-up conditions, allowing Boeing to claim the MAX flew, just like old 737s. But MCAS had a fatal flaw. It relied on a single sensor. When that sensor failed, MCAS would repeatedly dive the aircraft toward the ground while pilots fought desperately for control. The most evil part? Boeing deliberately hid MCAS from pilots. No mention in manuals, no training, no procedures. Boeing wanted pilots to believe they were flying a normal 737 while MCAS fought them for control. This wasn't oversight, it was calculated murder. October 29, 2018. Lion Air Flight 610 with 189 souls aboard. MCAS activated 26 times in 11 minutes, each time pushing the aircraft toward the Java Sea. Pilots Captain Baby Sineja and First Officer Harvino fought an invisible enemy they didn't know existed. Boeing knew MCAS had malfunctioned. Instead of grounding the aircraft, they blamed pilot error and kept the MAX flying. They chose stock prices over human lives. 157 more people would pay the price. March 10, 2019. Ethiopian Flight 302. Same cause, same result. MCAS driving the aircraft into the ground. Captain Yared Getachew and First Officer Ahmed Nur Mohammed were experienced pilots who even knew about MCAS procedures after Lion Air. They still couldn't save the aircraft. Boeing had 4 months to ground the MAX after Lion Air. Instead, they let 157 more people die rather than admit their fundamental design was flawed. Boeing didn't just deceive airlines and pilots. They purchased the regulators. Under the ODA program, Boeing employees were authorized to approve Boeing designs on behalf of the FAA. The Foxes owned the henhouse. FAA officials later admitted they didn't understand how MCAS worked until after the crashes. The agency responsible for safety had certified a system they didn't comprehend based on information from Boeing. This wasn't incompetence, it was corruption. Boeing promised airlines that pilots could transition to the MAX with minimal training, just a computer course and briefing. This promise was central to sales, as simulator training costs millions. But this promise was built on lies. The MAX handled fundamentally differently from previous 737s. When MCAS malfunctioned, pilots found themselves fighting an invisible system using procedures they'd never practiced. Internal communications show Boeing employees joking about deceiving regulators about training requirements, prioritizing sales over safety. Even after 346 deaths, Boeing continues the deception. The MAX that returned to service still has the same fundamental design flaws. The engines are still incorrectly positioned. The physics that required MCAS remain unchanged. Boeing has applied a more sophisticated software band-aid, but the underlying cancer remains. MCAS 2.0 is still a system designed to hide characteristics that shouldn't exist in a properly designed aircraft. Boeing paid $2.5 billion for murdering 346 people, less than they spend on executive compensation annually. No executives went to prison. The same leadership team remains in power. The families received settlements with gag orders that prevent them from sharing what they learned about Boeing's actions. Justice was purchased and silenced. Future MAX accidents aren't just possible, they're inevitable. Software cannot fix physics. Band-aids cannot cure design cancer. And Boeing's culture of financial engineering over actual engineering guarantees more deaths. The next crash will follow the same pattern. Design flaws hidden behind software complexity, captured regulators, and inadequate pilot training. Boeing will express shock, promise reforms, and continue killing. Every Boeing flight carries the ghosts of 346 murder victims. Remember Captain Baby Sineja and First Officer Harvino fighting for 11 minutes against a system they didn't know existed. Remember Captain Yared Getachew and First Officer Ahmed Nur Mohammed, who couldn't overcome flaws that should never have existed. Remember the families destroyed by Boeing's greed, children who lost parents, parents who lost children, dreams ended by corporate calculations that valued stock prices over human life. Boeing murdered 346 people to hide a 60-year-old lie. They're still lying. They're still killing. And until we demand real accountability, those victims died in vain. The 737 MAX wasn't a technological failure. It was a moral catastrophe. And the next Boeing aircraft you board carries the same DNA of deception that killed 346 innocent people.